Be seated. It's my pleasure, as I mentioned earlier, to welcome my grandparents, Rabbi Roy and Loretta Tanenbaum, here to join us this Shabbat from their... Yes, also Ellie would like you to know that she is here. To welcome them from Tekoa, which is a small settlement 15 minutes southeast of Jerusalem. It's been a really interesting past 6 months in Israel, and I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity for us to hear words from a person who has been living there and who has some unique perspectives and reflections on what it's been like to live in Israel over the last few months. And I'm really, really honored that my Savta Loretta agreed to share some words and reflections with us this morning. And feel free to let me know what questions you still have afterward. I think it would be better if you spoke from here because of where the microphone...
From here?
Yeah. You can, wherever you come from. Yeah. Because of where the line...
Okay, can everybody hear me? I'm not used to speaking through a mask. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be able to share a few personal experiences with you. Let me start by asking, I know that there's a couple of you, but how many of you have a personal connection with or a personal experience in any yeshuv, in any settlement in Israel? Okay, so it's actually, it's quite a few. All right, I'd like to start with a little bit of background. And a little bit of background is in the early 1990s, the Oslo Accords were signed, and the Oslo Accords had a specific purpose, and that was to lay the foundation for a double state, a two-state solution. And the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, that's why I wanted to be closer. Judea and Samaria were divided up into various areas. There was Area A, Area B, and Area C. Area A includes all of the territory that is under the Palestinian Authority. Area C is under Israeli military authority, not the civil authority, but it's military. And Area B I have no connection with, and anybody I ask, where is Area B? What's with Area B? Nobody seems to know. So we're leaving Area B out of it. But Area A and Area C are the areas that I personally am familiar with. So let's say we're driving to Tekoa from Jerusalem, okay? When you drive from Tekoa, from Jerusalem to Tekoa, there's narrow roads, and you go through Arab areas, and you see dotted along the road, there are very, very large, prominent signs, red background, white lettering in 3 languages, Hebrew, English, and Arabic, and the signs say, entry into Area A is forbidden to Israeli citizens. It doesn't say it's forbidden to Jews, although beware, but it says it's forbidden to Israeli citizens under pain of breaking the law and under pain of possible death. Do not go into this area. Now, once it happened that we had a taxi cab, we drove from a taxi cab from Jerusalem to Tekoa, and he turned up towards one of the paths, towards Area A. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And my husband and I just said, no, 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 this is the wrong way. And he said, oh yeah, that's right, I made a mistake. He was an Arab driver, he was used to going that way. Tekoa means affixed or stuck, and the closest Arab village is Tekoa. It's the same name. It's the place where the prophet Amos lived. Okay, so you drive into Tekoa, you see these big signs, and you see something else. You actually see a lot of things. Aside from the mountains that now look very brown because there's no rain, you see some beautiful houses. Now, I'm telling you, when I say beautiful buildings, I mean beautiful buildings. Large, many mirpasot, balconies, fancy work, and they look like they're just sort of plunked here and there, and you don't see a lot of sidewalks and you don't see a lot of infrastructure. But you do see a lot of buildings, and they seem to be empty. You don't see people around, or curtains, or once in a while you'll see clothes on a line, so you know that that building is inhabited. But we also see from our window, our back window, we see into the hills of the Arab villages. And when we first arrived in Tekoa, I actually got out my bird binoculars. And I looked across there and I said, I don't see people in these houses. What's going on? And some people said to us, when the Arabs build, they live on the first floor and they leave the upper floors for married children and extended families. So that's why you're not seeing people. But I learned something just from my own figuring things out. I learned that there really were a lot of buildings that were not inhabited, and I know that because there's no water tanks on top. When you build a building, you got the big water douche mime on the top and solar panels for the collecting of the electricity, and I would pass these buildings, and they really and truly were empty. But I finally got an answer from someone who knows, and a lot of these buildings were built with European Union money to create facts on the ground. And a lot of these buildings, these homes, are really uninhabited, but it's Arab territory with facts on the ground. Okay, so you drive into Tekoa, you go through this, these windy roads. Tekoa is gated. You have to go up, they have to open up a gate for your car to go in. And when you go into Tekoa, it's actually very, very pretty. The public areas have a lot of flowers. It's built on ring roads. It's not a grid where you have streets going this way and streets going that way. They're ring roads that go all around, and lots of flowers, lots of parks. In between the ring roads, you've got paths or steps that go from one road to another, and they're lined with roses or this one or that one. Beautiful flowers, parks all over the place. It's a very relaxed place in the sense that kids leave their bicycles in front of the houses unlocked, and it seems to be a safe place. But Arabs can't come in. This is Area C. And Arabs don't come into Tekoa unless they have a work permit and they are accompanied by somebody who is armed. When I first found that out, I actually found that to be very distressing. So my daughter, Karen, moved to Tekoa, I don't remember, 14 years ago or something like that. And she said to us two things. She said, first of all, you need to know that Tekoa was not built on Arab land. We're not moving to where it was built on Arab land. And number two, Tekoa is very diverse. You're going to hear French and Russian and English and Hebrew, and you're going to see a lot of artists, and you're going to see people who are very religious, the Haredim, and you're going to see people who are secular. It's very diverse. But it's not diverse in the sense that you have Arab living next to Jew. Okay, so this was a problem for me. This bothered me, but I ask questions and I try to probe and find out what really is going on. And the most recent discussion that we had was with two fellows, Hanan Schlesinger, you may have heard the name, and Shaul Yudelman, who are co-founders of a group called Shorashim. And Shaul lives in Tekoa, and Hanan Schlesinger lives in Alon Shvut, which is another yeshuv, another settlement. And their organization is a grassroots reach out to get Palestinians and Israelis to talk to each other, to do group programming. We went to a photography exhibit that they mounted. They had a class for teenagers, young teenagers, learning photography. There were 6 kids from the Palestinian villages. There were 6 kids from Israeli settlements. They learned cameras to take pictures, and then they mounted a photography exhibit, and we went. And it was very, very nice. And this organization is dedicated to making a rapprochement on an individual, personal level between Palestinians and Israelis. So I asked both of them, we were in their presence separately, I said, how can you live in a place where Arabs can't come in except with a work permit and with somebody who is armed? Doesn't that bother you? And one reaction that I got from one of the guys was he looked down and he seemed very embarrassed, and he said, it's for security reasons. It's for security reasons. All right, so what does that mean? I learned that there were too many murders. There were stabbings, specifically stabbings, that happened when Arabs came into the yeshuv. And instead of saying no Arabs ever can come in, they made a rule that they can only come in with a work permit and with some sort of protection. Now, let me move to something else. I know my time is limited. Yes, okay. We, when we got to Tekoa, we did not know that we were going to be doing a home renovation for our daughter. So we ended up, long complicated story, but we're gonna do a home renovation for our daughter. She had a big house, and we were going to divide it in half, and there would be a place for my husband and I, an apartment, and she's got 6 kids that are out and about. They're on their own, dividing it in half. Okay, so you need a contractor to do a major job like this. And we had an architect, a Jewish architect, Nechama, and there were 3 major contractors that were in Tekoa. 2 were Muslim Arabs, and 1 was Jewish. And we asked Nechama, who do you think is best to work with? Who does the best job? Recommend, we don't know what to do. And she recommended Muhammad. So we went with Muhammad. And we met with him, and we liked him, and we talked about what we wanted to do, and we arranged a contract with Muhammad. And the day that we signed the contract, at my kitchen table, put the signature down, he writes it down in Arabic. I brought out my checkbook, and I said, we're going to be gone for a few months. This was the last time we were here, not this time. I said, we're going to be gone for a few months, so I want to make sure that everything is okay, and I want to give you post-dated checks. You can't give me post-dated checks. The Israeli banks and the Palestinian banks don't talk to each other. I said, okay, give me your bank information and I'll make a bank transfer every time we need to pay you. He says, Gveret, the Palestinian banks and the Israeli banks don't talk to each other. You can't give me a bank transfer. I need cash. Every time I'm paid, I need cash. Well, that threw a monkey wrench into everything because it made it harder to work through this if my kids or grandkids had to go to the bank with our credit card and take out cash. But we did it. In the Arab culture, when a building is finished, it is the custom to slaughter a sheep. The owner of the home that was just built will arrange to have a sheep slaughtered, and you have a big barbecue, a lamb barbecue, with all of the workers that worked on your house. And you as the owner treat the workers to a big barbecue. Well, we didn't build a house, we only had a renovation of a house. But I thought, wouldn't it be nice, I'm not going to slaughter a sheep, but wouldn't it be nice to have some kind of a big meal where all the Arab workers will come, and I would be able to set up tables outside and everybody would come. It would be nice with the whole family, etc. So I said that to Muhammad. He broke into such a smile. And he said, that means you're happy. His Hebrew, by the way, was impeccable. His Hebrew was beautiful. He was working for many years in Tekoa. It didn't happen, but it didn't happen because of any political reason. It didn't happen because it was COVID and it was Ramadan and there were other things. It just didn't put together. So we never had our meal together with the Arab workers. But I would tell you that it was a very interesting experience. We couldn't speak with most of the workers. We had to speak through Muhammad because we don't speak Arabic, and they didn't speak English or Hebrew, most of the workers, Muhammad, but not the rest of the workers. They did a beautiful job. They took pride in what they did. And the basic experience of working with the Arab contractor and all of his workers was a very, very positive one. I have one last thing I want to say, and then I'm going to end. 2 more minutes, is that okay? I think I'm over time. This was all very positive, but there's negative that we learned that is also, I think it's important for people to know. We had a neighbor who was a doula. She delivers babies, and she worked in 2 hospitals. She worked in Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem, and she worked in St. Joseph's Hospital in East Jerusalem, which is an Arab neighborhood. In all of our experience in Hadassah and Shaarei Tzedek and Bikur Cholim, etc., all the hospitals, the staff, the medical staff is largely Arab, largely Jewish. I mean, it's a mixed, integrated staff, and they work beautifully together. Our vaccinations were administered by hijab-wearing nurses, and that was in the Maccabi clinic. So there's a lot of integration back and forth in the medical area, in the medical venue. Now, St. Joseph's Hospital has a policy, she told us, and the policy is you don't hire Jews. It doesn't matter for a surgeon, for a dermatologist, or for a floor cleaner. You don't hire Jews. So the hospital has no Jews, but she works there because she's hired by the mothers to be a labor coach during birth, and she's not hired by the hospital. And that's fine, and Jewish women go to St. Joseph's because it's got a reputation for an excellent maternity department. So Jewish women do go. And it's been fine. It's been good. There was a midwife there from Bethlehem. Bethlehem is area A, okay? And at the end of one birth, my neighbor said, "I'll drive you home." And the midwife looked at her in shock and said, "You can't go there. They will kill you." And she said, "I know. I wanted to make sure that you knew." Same woman, same conversation, said she went to a head doctor in the hospital in St. Joseph's. And she said, "I can arrange for you a class for your teenage girls. I can do sex education. I can do," and she listed things that she could help with to lead discussions with the girls. And the doctor looked at her and said, "We don't have a problem with our girls. Our girls don't step out," that was the word she used. "Our girls don't fool around because they know if they do, their fathers will kill them." So I brought this up with Hanan Schlesinger and Shaul Yudelman, who are very close to Palestinians. Is this true? Is this true? And the answer was yes. The answer was, this is true, and honor killings are still very common in the Arab and Palestinian world. So there's positive and there's negative. I could go on for another hour, but I won't. But our experience in Tekoa has been eye-opening in many ways. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Safta, for sharing your experience and your reflections with us. We're going to continue with our Musaf service on page 428 with Chatzi Kaddish. Please rise. Following Chatzi Kaddish, we will join with Isaiah for the opening blessings of the Amidah on page 430 and 432, and then continue with the individual whispered Amidah.